Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to another episode on the Recreating Yourself series. Today, I have a beautiful guest, Michelle Jacob. She's joining me. She is the author of the book You Are Enough, and she runs a website called Rewiring Minds. And Michelle, would you please introduce yourself real quick? Just let the audience know a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Thank you, Wendy, once again for having me here. And so a little bit about me, I used to work in the healthcare profession. I used to be an occupational therapist. And I went on my own inner journey. And I had this download of a book called You Are Enough that you just talked about. And I started to get this pull from the universe, as I call it, where I had to go on this mission. So I'm on a mission right now, a vision in a way to impact 200 million people to know that they are enough, you're valuable, and you're here with a purpose. So part of that is I bring tools such as HeartMath, where you're healing the heart. Tools such as I actually created a therapeutic tool. It's called the Inner Quantum Healing. Where we actually technically go back in time in a way and we reconstruct what happened. So think of trauma healing. So that's basically what happens in inner quantum healing, basically healing the trauma. So that's part of what I do. Stress management, anxiety, depression. So a lot of things in a nutshell. So what did I forget? I feel like I have this list of things that I do, but when we talk, it'll all come out because I basically integrated all these different therapies. I was like, you know what? Okay, as an OT, I did this, but then I went on this inner journey and there's a lot of spirituality tools to it. I realized, you know what? We have to work on resentment and forgiveness and self-love and acceptance. These are tools that are not on mainstream therapy, right? So yeah. You know what? I'll tell you more as we speak. But this was me in a nutshell.
No, thank you for sharing that. And I really appreciate that. And, you know, I find that that a lot of this work does all come together. Like it all intertwines, right? Like healing the heart, healing the trauma, healing like stress, like it all intertwines and it so beautifully into really healing all of what has been holding you back to really be your authentic expression.
Yes, absolutely. You know, Wendy, I wanted to add, so I don't know if I can share the screen. I was going to show. So Rewiring Minds has a logo. And the reason I like showing the logo is it's basically a tree and the roots of the tree are shaped like the brain. And so we have the tree trunk and the top of the tree is heart shaped. So that's the leaves and branches. And the way I like to share what you said in a different perspective, but it's the same thing, is think of ourselves as this tree, right? And the roots of the tree are equivalent to our mind, our brain. And if these roots, if we are still stuck in our past with these limiting beliefs, with trauma, with the way we deal with stress, if these roots aren't strong, the whole tree collapses. So we have to feed the mind and we have to learn how to transform our stress and transform those limiting beliefs, those fears we're holding on to. And then what I like to explain is we have the branches and the beautiful leaves of the tree, right? Those branches and the leaves are our physical body, right? Because you have to take care of your sleep, your nutrition, all of that. I even use oils, all that physical, your environment, right? Decluttering. And then I talk about the heart shape of the tree, and that is our heart. And there's a lot of science behind the heart right now, especially from HeartMath, that talks about our heart being like a mini brain, and our heart has neurons. So oftentimes, when we are trying to heal the mind from past trauma, it heals the mind, but people forget there are neurons in the heart that needs to be healed as well. So the heart is a structure all on its own that requires healing. Right? So that's the heart. And finally, I tell people about the trunk of the tree. The trunk of the tree that connects the roots and the leaves is basically a breath, a spirit. A spirit connects our mind and our body. So I love sharing this framework because it's easier to understand for people. So even simple things like all of us just being mindful and breathing, right, just connects the mind and the body, because sometimes it's so easy, and that's why I talk about stress management quite a bit too, because it's so easy for us to get stuck in our old patterns, our old limiting beliefs, and but the moment we just take that breath, right? It's like somehow we get connected again. So yeah, the body, mind, and spirit, to me, I find is the key. Always think about these three areas and think about, am I feeding my mind? Am I feeding my body? Am I feeding my spirit the right things? So I don't know how I went there, but
No, I love it. So I heard mind, body, spirit. They're essential in like your whole component as a human being, and just allowing yourself to really experience that whole healing, like healing in a whole.
Yes, absolutely. Because I find that if we just focus on one, it's not enough. It's like that tree. If you're not focusing on the roots, the tree is going to fall, right? But if you're only focused on the roots, and if this tree is not getting the sunlight, it's still going to fall. So it cannot be separated. And many a times I feel, people are only focused on the physical training, or only on the nutrition, or only on the therapy, but everything has to be integrated. That's what we are. We are mind, body, spirit.
Mind,
body,
spirit. So I find that a lot of people's entryway into taking care of themselves starts with the mind, right? Like a lot of people think, oh, it's my mindset that I have to fix. And I know that for me, that was the case. Like I started with my mindset, and then I figured that mindset, like as I was going on my journey, I started to notice that mindset wasn't enough. Like you can't get so far, and that you had to tap into also into your body, definitely nutrition, physical activity. But then I also noticed that wasn't enough. And then I was like, okay, I have to come back home to me. And I started to notice that it began with my heart, like really healing the heart. And I love what you shared about like that the heart has its own system,
intelligence too.
Intelligence. And can you tell us a little bit more about like why it's important to begin to heal your heart? I know you kind of touched on it briefly, but like if you give us like a bigger picture as to why it is like really important that us as human beings really tap into our heart and heal whatever we are carrying that really doesn't serve our growth.
Yes. And again, like I said, it's all interconnected, right? So now with the heart, a lot of people think heart is just a pumping organ, but that's not the case, right? And this is research, this is science. So science is now showing that our heart is like a mini brain. So think of our brain, and what our brain has is something called neurons, right? Neuronal connection, and that's how we learn new patterns. So we have certain patterns now, many of us have maladaptive patterns. So that's why you were talking about, Wendy, the mindset. The mindset has changed, but guess what? You go back into those old patterns, right? Yeah. Now, neurons of the heart are very similar too. Now, in the heart, what we also have is an intelligence. So I wanted to share the study with you because I think the study is fabulous. So this was a study by HeartMath. I can't remember when they did this study, but what they had was they had two groups of people. One set of people, they trained them with some HeartMath interventions. So basically helping them connect with your heart. And the other group was the control, right? So these two groups were shown randomized images. And the images, some of the images were gory and some of the images were peaceful. And the people had to guess what images or what image was going to appear on the computer screen before it appeared. So what they found out, which is so amazing, was a control group. They had difficulty, right? But with the group that did the HeartMath interventions, that tapped into the heart's intelligence, and I can share one of the interventions because I am a certified HeartMath provider, so I can share one of the, it's a very easy technique I'll share with all of us here too. And what they did was once they shifted into the heart, they were able to, with accuracy, 100% accuracy, predict the image that was going to be shown on the screen. How powerful is that?
Yeah.
Right? We all hold that intelligence because sometimes we can get so caught up here. Many people think that the thoughts that they're having is the truth, but it's not really the case, right? So always I tell people, question your thoughts, and it's just dropping into the heart. and just allowing that quiet voice, there's that intelligence, we have it. Spirituality, has always been talking about the heart. It talks about guard your heart, follow your heart, right? Those are terms from spiritual texts. And now science is catching up, and HeartMath is showing how the heart functions. Now, that being said, I want to add a few more things. And the reason I always say is it's very important to manage your stress is because, and when I talk about stress, I just want to clarify, I'm actually talking about those negative emotions we experience. It's not the external circumstances that are stress. It's the way you perceive it and the emotions you're experiencing. Because the moment you experience a certain emotion, and if that emotion is negative, guess what it does? It affects your autonomic nervous system, which again is part of the body that controls everything that happens automatically. So, a lot of times now, connecting the mind, body, spirit, I know we are kind of going in separate ways, but I promise you it all comes back together. Many people think when they are struggling with an autoimmune condition, it's something in the physical body. And of course, it's important to get your tests, and sometimes it might be physical things that maybe, you just need to adjust a few things there. But oftentimes, it's unhealed wounds, it's trauma, it's emotions that are stuck in the body that's manifested, right, as autoimmune conditions. So even when it comes to that healing, but that's now going back to that autonomic nervous system that I was talking about. Now, what happens is, and now how I'm going to connect that to HeartMath. Now, HeartMath has biofeedback devices where you can just put in a device, a ear sensor, and you just get to see what's going on in your heart. Now, when you experience a negative emotion, your heart, right? I wish I could show you a picture actually, because it's much easier. So you have your heartbeat, and your heartbeat over time varies. Now, when you're in positive emotional states, the graph that comes up is a beautiful sine-like wave. And that graph is actually a window into that autonomic nervous system that I'm talking about. Because this autonomic nervous system has two branches. One is the sympathetic. Many of you have heard of the fight, flight, freeze response. The other one is the parasympathetic. That's where the healing happens, restoration, right? And oftentimes with our stress, with our emotions, negative thoughts, all that, the mindset, all of that, the fight and flight is on full gear. The tone of it is high. And the parasympathetic tone is much lower. So the body can't heal, the body can't rest, the body can't digest. And guess what else? You cannot connect to your higher intelligence. You cannot connect to your heart's intelligence. And this is biofeedback. You can see it for yourself. So when you're on these biofeedback devices, you can see when you are in that stressed out state, those negative emotions, guilt, shame, irritation, frustration, anger, right? All of that, the wave is chaotic.
Yeah.
And the moment you just shift, and like I said, we'll do that technique too. So I can teach you guys a 2-minute technique. Your waves start to be sine-like waves. And suddenly you feel like, I'm connecting to something higher. Yeah. So I hope that answered a bit of your question about the heart. Wendy.
I absolutely love that. Like, I geek out over this stuff. So like the fight or flight response and like your homeostasis state. Like, I love this stuff. And what I've noticed in my own personal life too, I have a reminder on my phone that I just recently put that tells me to breathe every single hour, because of the fact that in simple terms, like, you're either in survival or you're either in thriving mode, right? So I know when I begin to notice that I'm in survival, like I'm stressing, I'm feeling a little bit anxious, or I'm feeling like all over the place or overwhelmed, I'm like, okay, Wendy, come back.
Yes.
And I'm like, so take a deep breath, take a few deep breaths, and that really helps me in grounding and coming back to the present. So just in sharing that, do you find that that's a way to come back to your heart, like just with the breath? Or I know you say you were going to share a technique, but what are other ways that you can come back to your heart? And how do you connect with your heart? Is it through breathing, that's the only way? Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the things is because of that beautiful biofeedback, you get to see yourself for yourself, what's happening when you shift your breath and what's happening when you think of positive emotions. So to answer the question of how to connect to your heart, it's starting off with our breath. You know how I was talking about the trunk of the tree, it connects the roots, it connects the leaves and the branches. Same thing, you are starting off with the breath, but what you're doing is you want to focus on the breath. Your heart. And you want to imagine your breath going in and out of the heart. Now, just by doing that alone, the person is starting to shift because they're not getting too engaged in the thoughts, because our thoughts, once you start off with this negative thinking, it's a rabbit hole. What you focus on, it's just going to grow, right? So if you're focusing on something bad happening in your life, it's going to grow. Focus on something good happening in your life, that's also going to grow, right? So the energy, we always have to be aware of where we're putting our attention and where we're putting our energy into. So it's moving their attention straight to your heart. Just taking a little elevator ride down. The second thing you want to do is breath is powerful, but to get that sound like waves, you can start with rhythmic breathing. And I tell people get caught up in, oh, what rhythm should I follow? Doesn't matter, because the biofeedback clearly shows that it just has to be a rhythm. So if you're breathing in for 5, breathing out for 5, stick to that rhythm. If you're doing the whole 4, 7, 8, stick to that rhythm. Doesn't matter. Now, so you're just doing that first, right? You're connecting with that heart first. You're bringing the attention there. And what shifts is in our heart is where we start to feel, think of when you are in love, when you feel grateful, when you feel compassion, courage, bravery, kindness. It's in the heart. And many people think something external has to happen for you to feel that way. And that is not the case. So once you do this rhythm, once you are in that heart space, all you're doing is you want to think of your blessings. Think of something that makes you feel grateful. Sometimes if someone is stuck in that stress and in that negativity, it's hard to even think of something that makes you feel grateful. And to those people, I say, think of something that brings warmth to your heart. Maybe it's a pet you have, right? Maybe it's rubbing the fur of an animal. Whatever brings that warmth. A lot of people have experienced that warmth in that heart. That is actually release of oxytocin. That is rewiring in a way. And that is how you shift the emotion. So you can close your eyes. You can think of a beautiful place you've been to. You can think of someone you love unconditionally. And you just start to feel. And that's the key, you guys. It's not just about just saying, hey, yeah, I'm grateful. No. Feel the gratitude. You want to feel, I'm grateful for these trees, and feel love, peace. And you can just start to feel the love, feel the peace, feel the compassion. You don't have to depend on your external circumstances. Someone does not have to make you feel that. Like I talk about that quite a bit in You Are Enough, because a lot of people don't realize stepping into this belief that I am enough, it's actually a process. It's not something where you wake up and go, hey, today I'm going to work on my mind and I am enough. It doesn't work that way. We're all wired. Our autonomic nervous system is wired. Our brain is wired. Our heart is wired, right? So I know I'm sidetracking again a little bit, Wendy, and I'm sorry for that.
No, go ahead.
But I thought it was great information as well, because one of the things I explain in You Are Enough is getting into the state of I am enough, letting go of that past. It's actually a 7-step process. So once you've healed from your trauma, right? Once you've pulled out your weeds, it's so important to plant a new seed. And this breathing that you're doing, this heart connecting to your heart, that is all new seeds you're planting, you're rewiring. And so, I tell the acronym that I have is called MIRACLE. So miracle is actually an acronym. M in miracle stands for mindfulness. So mindfulness is that attention, right? You're paying attention, but you're paying attention with kindness and non-judgment. So even with, when you're paying attention to your thoughts and you're going, hey, my thoughts are not in the right place. Even that is actually powerful at shifting into your heart, because you recognizing that your thoughts are not serving you, is power right there. That's awareness, that's practicing mindfulness. And then you drop to your heart and you want to feel the other things. Now, I in mindfulness is identity, and we can talk about that later. But the R is what I wanted to emphasize. R is refocusing your emotions. Because if you are stuck in those negative emotions that comes from when we don't feel enough, right? When you don't feel enough and you're in a group setting, you start to feel social anxiety. Many people don't even realize that because you're automatically comparing yourself and thinking, oh, I'm less than this other person. This is automatic comparison, right? And there is these negative emotions. And what you do with this, just dropping into your heart, is you're going again back to your heart. You're stopping that pattern of negative thinking, the negative emotions, you're breathing, the rhythm, and you're just, as soon as you start to feel grateful, like you'll see, and I'm sure, Wendy, you practice this anyway, when you start to feel grateful, when you start to just feel love and compassion, you start to feel okay. Suddenly you're like, you know what, I'm grateful for me.
Yeah.
I am, because you connect to who you truly are. And, you know, one of the things that I say is we're either coming from fear or we're coming from love. And the reason heart is so powerful is it helps us feel those feelings of love. Because when you're feeling those feelings of love, the easy way is to just feel it. And I'll take you through the whole process called quick coherence. What you'll realize is you have stopped the fear pattern. You're no longer engaging the sympathetic. You are actually engaging the parasympathetic. So it's powerful. It's powerful. Connecting to our heart is powerful. So that's the R in the miracle. And then we can talk about the other letters later if you like.
Yeah. No, I love what you just shared right now, because it's so important to tap into your heart and like get grounded. I've noticed I love the science behind it. And I before I started practicing these practices, I had to see the science for myself too. I was like, why is this so important? Right?
Yes.
And I started to experiment. I was like, okay, this all sounds like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I get it, but let me start putting it into practice. And what I started to notice was that, yes, whenever I started to go into all those like feelings of like overwhelm, anxiety, stress, comparison, once I anchored down and once I came down to my heart, I could just stop and like freeze everything and just be like, okay,
Yes.
everything is all right. Like, all is well. There's no need for me to freak out. There's no need for me to compare. There's no need for me to go into this downward spiral. I can just come back here.
Yes.
And what I found also was like this opening of the heart, like this energy. And
yes,
I've only experienced that a few times, but it has been so powerful in just acknowledging the power of the heart. And I was like, whoa, this is mind-blowing stuff. Like, this is mind-blowing stuff. Yeah.
It's very interesting, because I do feel like there's this thing I do, and I'm like, oh, I'm looking for a glass jar. I don't have a glass jar on me right now. But I feel like when we are born into this world, right? Think about it. We are in this clear container. We are connected to that love. We're not like ashamed of asking for our needs. We know we are enough. We're like, hey, give me love, right?
Yeah.
And I find that, so imagine me with a glass, right? A clear glass. Every time in our childhood something happened to us and we got hurt, of course we started to form those limiting beliefs, but it also colored the view of how we need to deal with situations, right? Because we picked on the societal patterns of responding to something, our parents' patterns, teachers, right? And also we started to see ourselves in a certain way, and it affected our view of the world. So imagine if I had a clear glass and I started to color now on it, because this is all what other people are programming me to do. I'm also losing touch with my core. So you know how you were talking about the identity before we started here? And that core, we're all love, but we're losing it over our childhood because we have all this happening, and now we're seeing through these tinted glasses, right? And then we're seeing ourselves through these tinted glasses. Many of us have literally built up a wall around our heart because we have gotten hurt so many times that you're afraid to open that heart. You're talking about opening that heart space. Many can't open it because they're hurt in the past, and that hurt hasn't been healed. So there's that wall. I can't let you in. And sometimes I tell people, there's the other way to think of it is we all have a heart.
Yeah.
Right? And hurt happens, and we just put a band-aid over it. We're just putting a band-aid and just patching and patching. But when we are not truly healing our heart, this band-aid itself starts to get heavy.
Yeah.
The heart starts to get heavy. We aren't healing it the way it needs to be healed, right? So I tell people it's so important that opening the heart is actually very important, because I feel like it can transform societies. If you think about it, why do we have racism? Why do we have hate? Right? Because no one's connected. We're all in our survival mode, or we're all being programmed to think a certain way, us versus them. But when we connect to our heart, truly connect, and we realize, oh my God, I am loved, and so are you. I am special, and so are you. I have my strengths, and you have your strengths. And often in society, I have my strengths and weakness, but oftentimes what are we doing? We're comparing our weakness to the other person's strength. Of course, then I'm not focusing on my own strength. I'm not building my strength, but we are all important, and we all need each of our strengths, and they all look very different, right? And I find it's so important to come to the heart to realize all this, because from here, here is the ego.
Yeah.
The ego is all about survival, right? And in that survival, we think each of us are separate, when in reality, we are love. We all are united. And even heart, the other thing I wanted to talk about the heart is our heart has an electromagnetic field. So when you are in those positive emotions, the field, actually, you're emitting it into the field.
Yeah.
So there's something called, that's a coherence. They call it coherence, right? There's something called global coherence, which means if, let's say, you and I are in the same room, and I was having a really rough day, and I walk in all stressed out. And I'm sure you've experienced this before. You will be able to pick up that my energy is not there. You can read me without me even saying anything to you, because you picked up my field. You picked up that information. It's like when I call you over the phone, we are transmitting information. There's no wire, it's over a field. And we all have that. So I feel like if we all took responsibility for what we are emitting in our field, it can affect the field of others. So, I walk in stressed and I'm all grumpy, right? And you already are like, oh, I just picked up her field. It's not good. I don't like her energy, right? And we start having a conversation, and we may piss each other off for all we know, right? Because we started off that way, where I wasn't in a great state. And sorry, neither way you, right? So think about it. So you weren't in a great state, and many relationships, that's how many relationships melt down too. Both parties are stressed, and we're all going blah 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 blah, right? But what if we all chose to take care of our own feels? We came from love and compassion. So in this state, when I do come in stress, and you are not in that negative emotional state, and you are chosen to be in love and compassion, you suddenly emit that energy. You don't have to take in my energy. You are protecting yourself from the love and compassion you are, but you know what else you're doing? You are actually slowly transforming my energy too. Because the moment you come from that place of love and compassion, a lot of people think they're powerless, but we're not. We're very powerful beings, and each of us hold the power to transform this world. So I don't know how I went in that direction, but I always
love
think
it.
It's coming out of my mouth. It's meant to be at the moment.
I absolutely love it, Michelle. Thank you for sharing that. And I love what you said about like love and peace, like it being more powerful, and it does vibrate higher on a frequency, on a vibrational frequency. Like vibrates higher than fear, than stress, than all that stuff. So yes, it is powerful stuff. And you also talked about your heart being blocked, right? And I actually did a reel I think yesterday, it'll be last week when I publish this, but I did a reel about how many people think that blocking your heart is the way to protect yourself. right?
Yes.
And what I found in my own personal experience was that I actually suffered more, and I actually could not feel life. Like I could not feel joy. I cannot feel expansive. I actually felt contracted. I felt in scarcity. I felt like fearful by closing my heart. And so
Yes.
instead of
And
it actually protecting me, it was doing the opposite.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
And you know what? It's also manifestation if you think about it. Because if you are protecting your heart and you're going, somebody's going to hurt me in the future, and you are starting a relationship from this place of, I want to protect myself, you already started, this new relationship, you already manifested it going downhill anyway, because you started it from this place of survival.
yeah.
But if you had just opened yourself and you started that relationship from this place of, you know what, it's going to be great and I am safe, you would have, like, not you, I'm not, but
Yeah.
the person is more vulnerable and would have shared their heart. And then if that person doesn't accept you for sharing your heart, then that's not the right person. Maybe it's a good thing at that moment, but then you find that right person when you, right? So I do find part of it also, we end up manifesting when we are in this fear state, where we are closed off. And so there's a danger there too.
Yeah.
Right.
So
and have you heard?
Go ahead.
Go on, Mandy.
No. Go ahead. I want to hear.
Oh, no. I was going to say, have you heard? I don't know how the quote goes, but it's along the lines of, when you're guarding your heart, to protect yourself, you're actually blocking your own light from going out, or something like that. I know there's a quote along those lines. I can't remember the exact quote.
Well,
but you're not letting
the flow. You're stopping the flow, and you're stopping your own love to yourself as well. So it's like there's all these effects from quote unquote protecting your heart and having a wall up. And I also find that there's this idea of, like, if I'm vulnerable, if I walk with an open heart, then yes, I am gonna get hurt. So how do I protect myself? And something that I've been exploring with is boundaries.
I want to take it. So yeah, I want to share a bit about boundaries that we're going to set for other people, but I really wanted to take it in a different direction for a minute, because I feel like many of us don't have boundaries within ourselves. So yes, there's boundaries where, hey, this is okay behavior for me. If you do that, it's not okay. I don't put up with that behavior, kind of boundary, right? There's that boundary. But what about the boundary for yourself? What about not being okay going into self-pity? Because some of us, and victimization, right? We get caught up, and don't get me wrong, there's, you want to identify it and then you want to transform it. But many people, because it's the pattern, and that's why I want to specify the pattern, they have been in this pattern from childhood of victimization, of being hurt. And so they don't realize it's a pattern. And, they're attracting people to their lives that play the pattern from their past. So there's this boundary within ourselves. And sometimes there's this thinking where we are going, oh, they're doing exactly like my dad did or mom did, not realizing they're attracting that because they are stuck in that pattern. And it's all about cutting the pattern. And cutting the pattern is having the boundary for yourself, in a way, when you start to go into rabbit holes, right? When you start to, what is a word I'm looking for? Where you start to have this idea of someone and then you're stuck with it, or someone hurt you, let's say, and you're stuck there, and all you can think of is anger, resentment, all these negative stuff towards them, and then you're just stuck. Right? What about having a boundary where you're like, you know what? Okay, maybe one day, maximum 1 week, I'll waste my life and my energy focusing on them. But my boundary for myself is I'm going to choose where I want to spend my energy with my thoughts. I feel like we should start with our own self boundary, where I choose not to waste my energy here. This is my boundary for myself, right? So I often take the boundary question into that zone, because I feel like a lot of us need to start there. And then, of course, the thing is, the moment you start to heal from your past, the moment you start to connect to your true self, that is the moment where, and have compassion for yourself, and especially with women, and C in miracle stands for compassion for self, because a lot of women are critical about themselves. But the problem is, when we are critical about ourselves and when we are judging ourselves, chances are you're judging the other person as well. And when we come from a space of judgment, guess what happens? We are personalizing what another person says to us. So if someone says, oh, you are not a very nice person, and you haven't practiced self-compassion and you are highly critical about yourself and you don't know who you are, which is a problem when you're not connected to the heart that you are. You don't know, yeah, you know what, I'm growing every day, I am love, right? When you're not connected to the core of who you are, you easily absorb what they said and make that as your identity. So the boundary, part of that boundary is choosing to go to the space where, hey, okay, you know what, thank you for your feedback. I'm going to see if I can work on that. You don't have to take it in. There is no need to take it in. You can say, like, that's where, you know, there's a boundary, because I really wanted to specify, because there is a boundary where people are like, that's my boundary and I hate you for crossing it and I don't like it. There's that place where you can set your boundary. But what is powerful is setting your boundary from a place of compassion, where you see the person go, my goodness, there's so much hurt and pain in you that you're trying to hurt me. But now I'm healed, that I can see your pain and realize this isn't personal, right? But this is my boundary. I'm sorry you're going through all this. And you know what, we'll talk at a different time, or, you know, whatever boundary rule you want to set. So there's a boundary where come from compassion or come from anger. And again, you get to choose, right? Because like there's so many levels to, right? Like coming to the law of attraction, manifestation, like you were saying, the frequencies, right? So what rate, you know how they say the whole law of attraction is what radio frequency are you dialed in, right? If you're dialed into, so in Toronto here we have Chum FM, this is 104.5. So if you're dialed into 104.5, you get Chum FM. What is your inner state? Are you dialed into guilt, shame, anger, irritation, frustration, judgment? Because that, then you start to attract that. But if you are dialed into love, compassion, appreciation, kindness, you know, love, and all the peace, there you go, peace, joy, all the high frequencies, now suddenly you're going to find yourself attracting those kind of events towards yourself. And a lot of people, you know, I don't know if you heard that, where people go, oh, that person's just lucky. They're always getting themselves out of these situations. You're so lucky, right? And oftentimes it's not just luck. That person's inner state is a reflection of the outer state as well. So there's so many elements to these things. It's funny where I can't just say one, this is the answer, because there's so many elements. And ultimately, I say the most powerful boundary is a boundary you're going to make to yourself, where you're going to go, I choose not to waste my energy on this thought or personalizing something or someone words, you know, and then take it to the next direction. But you need to start there, is what I believe.
And that's powerful stuff, what you just shared. It's like coming, what energy are you choosing to emit? Is it coming from like a anger, like this is my boundary, like you've crossed it, or like or like, you know what, I can see their pain and I can see that it's not mine, and that's just not going to work for me. You know, it's not going to work for me right now. I can still love them, I can still see them with compassion, but it doesn't work for me. And love that you shared that. So
because I think it's so powerful, like
it is.
Because if you're coming from a place of hate and anger and setting that boundary, you're just emitting anger and hate. Like there's no, you know, it's not going to transform anything. You know, I loved how in ATL 18, you know, we were in ATL 18 together, where they talked about be the source of a transformed world. And I feel like that's such a powerful statement, because you can be the source of a transformed relationship as well, right? And or transformed world, and whatever that looks like. But always maintain your love, your, you know, guard the heart, maintain your inner states of peace, love, compassion. And everything flows, you know?
Yeah. And that's reclaiming your power, right? Like
Yes,
reclaiming
yes,
power and
standing in your power.
yeah, knowing that
Yes,
you're a powerful being, and that you don't have to give away your power to others, or to
yes,
everyone.
yes. And you know, Wendy, when I do like private sessions of quantum inner healing with clients, right? A lot of my clients have anxiety. And what it was is because you talked about power. So when we go back in time, what it was is they felt powerless as
Mm-hmm.
children because they often had, growing up, a parent who didn't give them the power, the voice, or they're growing up in an environment where they felt powerless. And that pattern continued. So as adults, they're still feeling powerless. You don't consciously recognize that's where my anxiety is coming from, because that's why it's very important to actually transform anxiety. We got to go to the root and pull out the event that started this process, this pattern in the first place, right? And it all stems down to powerlessness, which is, and it's so funny you mentioned powerlessness, because the cause of a lot of anxiety is powerlessness, because people feel powerless. And yeah, so I feel like, and again, I don't like even labeling anxiety depression, because what I've learned over the years now is this label itself can affect someone, it can hurt somebody, because it's usually somebody dealing with the trauma in a certain pattern and over the years. Because anytime we are dealing with something, remember, your emotions are basically chemicals, right?
Yeah.
Hormones into your body. So when you deal with something from a place of powerlessness, you're also coming from a place of fear. And constantly, if the body is pumping, and when you are in fear, your body pumps cortisol. Your body is pumping this hormone of stress. So imagine over the years, you have pumped, so anxiety or depression, right? You're pumping these chemicals. Suddenly the person thinks that is who I am, but it's not the truth. That's how their patterns release these chemicals, and that's what they became, or that's just a coping mechanism, but that's not who they are. And going back to that, clearing that, stepping into the identity again, it's a process. But I feel like part of me, so when I said I want to impact 200 million people to come to a place of being enough, part of that mission is to help people understand that we have a choice. We don't need to continue the patterns of our childhood. Even the awareness that, oh my goodness, I am repeating my pattern of, oftentimes, like, talking about, and again, I could stop me anytime. This is like,
no, go ahead.
Like, go on and on.
Yeah.
I was talking about, oftentimes, even in like relationships, I find people pick a partner. So let's say someone grew up with parents and one of the parents was abusive. What you'll find is when they're picking a partner, if they haven't really pulled out the weeds of that past and really transformed it, the pattern repeats. So the partners they end up picking often reflects one or the other parent, and people don't even realize that. Often it's the same emotions they re-experience in those relationships from their childhood, and a lot of people don't realize that. And the way to break those patterns is actually, like I say, we have to pull out the weeds, and it has to be planting a new seeds, the whole 7 steps, the miracle, compassion, mindfulness, core identity, learn to refocus your emotions, extinguish the pain, forgiveness. A lot of people are stuck there. And that forgiveness, that resentment is not serving you. You are the prisoner, not them, right? Yeah. So there is there is no like one, hey, this is the pill, this is the magic pill. No, I feel like there's like several steps to everything,
Yeah.
Like you said, it's not straightforward, right? It's all intertwined. It's a web.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of the journey, right? Like that is the journey within itself. Because what I found in my experience was that when I was in resentment, when I was in anger, when I was experiencing a breakup a few years ago, I could feel those emotions, like they were strong. Like I felt like anger, frustration, hatred, like how dare this person do this to me? How dare they? But not realizing that I was giving my power away. So when I started to wake up to that, I was like, okay, like this is really painful. Like this stuff that I'm believing is really painful. How can I shift? And I started to get into forgiveness work. And I was like, I don't want to forgive this person. Like, I don't want to forgive them at all. Like, they did so wrong to me. Like, I don't want to forgive them. But I started to notice that. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to play with it. Like, I'm just going to play with it and see like where it takes me. So when I started to like really just, whenever I would get thoughts about this person, like I would just close my eyes and say, you know what? I see that you're in pain and I'm sorry. And I send you love. I send you love. Yes. And I would do this like nightly, until I started to feel this weight off my heart, off my shoulders. And then it was like freeing. Like I started to free myself up and I didn't feel those contracting emotions as much anymore. And then I took it up another notch and I wrote a letter to this person, and I wrote a letter to them, and I was like bawling my eyes out. And then I was like, I forgive you for this, I forgive you for this, I forgive you for not loving me, I forgive you for X, Y, and Z, right? And then as I was going deeper into the letter, I started to write, I forgive myself, me.
Yes.
For not loving myself enough.
Yes.
Oh my God, it's making me teary, but this was the process. Like, I forgive myself for thinking I wasn't enough. I forgive myself for hurting myself. I forgive myself for not having any boundaries and all that stuff. And after I wrote that letter, it was like this new persona, like this new person arrived, like somebody that I didn't recognize, but I was like, I like this much better. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. So powerful, because I can completely relate to everything you were saying. Because when this book was downloaded to me, it was during the time where I was having my relationship issue. Like I was saying, everything when I was doing my inner work, it was because of the relationship I was in. And for the longest time, because I was in this field in healthcare and therapy. So when I first met my husband, right, like when we got married, within a month, we actually got into this pattern. Whenever we fought, we would separate. Well, he would like walk away because he was used to that. That was his pattern that he observed and patterned something that happened in his childhood, right?
Yeah.
And I would go, oh my goodness, I'm not good enough. Nobody loves me, because I have a pattern from my childhood where I thought my mom didn't love me and I'm never good enough. And so I'm going, I'm never enough for him, right? So we both had this baggage and we're fighting each other all the time, like cats and dogs, right?
Yeah.
And initially what I used to do is go to the library, get all the books on psychology to try to figure out why my husband was acting a certain way. Because you know what? I loved my victim role, right? And I'm like, why is he doing this to me? Why is he? Because every time for me, I had to live this whole breakup every few months, because we used to do that. I'm like, are we breaking up? Are we getting back together? And he would literally leave. And I'm going, and at the time too, I didn't know about boundaries, because I'm thinking something's wrong with me. And then my ego going, no, nothing's wrong with me. Let me sit and figure out what's wrong with him, because my ego was in play too, right? Because the other thing is, these were all the opportunities of growth. Looking back now at my 10 years, I played this game for, okay, maybe not 10 years, but at least 9 years we did this, right? And looking back now, I am grateful, because these were all opportunities to work on me. And I didn't realize that until one day, same thing happened. And that too, the fights weren't about anything big, right? It used to be about, hey, why do people eat lamb on Easter? And we used to, like, our egos were like up there, that I wanted to win, he wanted to win, and we used to like separate over that. So
I can relate.
Right? I'm sure this is a lot of relationships, like when I share my story, they're like, I can relate to that.
Like, I'm right, you're wrong.
Exactly, right? And nobody wants to give up. You're like, no, because it's a power struggle because neither party has stepped into their power. If we
Right.
both stepped into our
Yes.
power,
Yes.
we wouldn't do this power struggle. Because I am like, you know what? I am enough. Sure, if that makes you feel better, go ahead, right? I wouldn't be fighting to feel better,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, so eventually one day though, I was like, you know what? I'm done. I've had enough of depending, because I was depending on my husband to make me feel enough, because he used to say how beautiful I was and how I made his life awesome. And so I used to love that part. But then when he had his own meltdowns and everything, I used to hate that part, right? Because and my own inner states would be really high when he made me feel loved, and really low when I didn't feel the love. And it was like this, unstable inner states.
Yeah.
And so one day I was like, I've had enough. And I need to find my inner peace, my inner happiness, no matter the circumstances.
Yeah.
So that's when, and again, one of the things that I even then believed in was something higher than me. So I tell people, God, universe, I don't care what term you choose. To me, like, because I grew up in a certain faith, I still refer to my higher consciousness, that higher wisdom, universe, as God. So I'm sitting and complaining to God, why? What did I do? Why are you punishing me? Because that was my upbringing, where it was about punishment. It was about sin, and that kind of world that I grew up in, that I was still thinking, going through all this trauma for me, or all this emotional roller coaster, was punishment of some sort. That I did something, again, going into something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Right? Not realizing, I have the power. So anyway, one day I came into this thing that, no, I've had it. What do I need to do? God help me this time, right? It wasn't like, why? It was more of like, okay, what should I learn from this? And I remember I was on the computer and HeartMath popped up somehow. So that's when I went into started reading more about the heart, started practicing HeartMath, got interested in it more. Then the meditations, mindfulness, all of that, start getting trained in that, because everything I want the science, right? I'm like, I'm not blindly going to believe things. I want the science.
Yeah.
So it was all like, I did the mindfulness, and then I had, when was it? And what I started to notice is I started to shift, like my inner state. I was like in joy and happiness. External states were still the same. We would have our separated, but because I was still growing too, right? Because I didn't know how, okay, why am I allowing somebody to do that when I could take the power? So it took us a while. It took me a while. So the book got downloaded, and what I realized was that download. So again, the reason I'm saying book got downloaded is back in 2018, I was actually writing a guided journal for the clients. So I was still working as a therapist back then. A little bit over the history. I hadn't started Devouring Minds. I wasn't doing the therapeutic coaching. And I was writing this guided journal. I was doing HeartMath and mindfulness for the clients. Yeah. And I suddenly felt this download of information. And I was like, okay, I got to open this new, a Microsoft document, and these 7 steps came through, right? But Wendy, what I didn't realize was that book was for me. Because even at that time, I had these tools, but I didn't realize I was still struggling with not being enough. Yeah. So our cycle kept happening. And then, the more and more is like when I went into it, now looking back, I realized, oh my God, it started from me not feeling enough and me playing my pattern of childhood. Because my mom was very similar in terms of making me feel I wasn't enough. I was like, okay, time to take power back. Yeah. So in our relationship, we actually, so I knew we both loved each other a lot. So it wasn't about the love. It was about how we both were insecure. Reality was we both were insecure. We both felt powerless. So then the relationship is about power struggle, right? Yeah. It's when we all step into our powers that the relationship can shift. So back, I think it was when COVID initially started, when I completely realized this aha moment I had. It's like, oh my God, this is just a pattern and I need to break it. And usually I never start the pattern of, I'm done, I'm getting a divorce ever. It's usually and this time I was like, you know what, this pattern needs to end. I am not doing this anymore. Yeah. And I'm going to file for a divorce because it's just toxic.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so this is a little bit of my story here. We actually were separated for an entire year. We both got a reset because we needed that reset from our patterns, because even though I had made the changes, the problem was, and again, that is why practice is so important when we are learning something new, right? Even for 8 years you can learn, but when it comes to implementation, it's harder. You could do your breathing when you're feeling all nice and calm and it's great. But what about when somebody just attacked you and said you are doing this and you are doing that, and you're suddenly going, no, none of that is true. You're gone. You are in that, I see a tiger in front of me. I'm in a fight or flight mode, right? Yeah. So it took us a year where we both had to go on, like, he did his journey, I did mine. But what shifted was we both came back into this powerful state, into the state of what do we want to create in this relationship? Yeah. That is a game changer, because a lot of us get stuck in victimization. Things are happening to me, I am powerless. But the moment you step into power, and I was grateful, I was truly grateful, because my husband, he was open to doing the inner healing that I talk about, the content. It's a gift that I'm very grateful to have, because I can literally heal people in one session, right? And it's one of those gifts. And I was so grateful that after a year, he realized, oh yeah, I really want to make this relationship work. And for me, it was the boundary you were talking about. I really love you, but my boundary now is my inner peace and happiness. And for that, I cannot be stuck in a toxic cycle of power struggles, right? So this was one of my condition where, hey, I really know what that event is that keeps you stuck there, and I can help. And if you can just trust me this one time, right? So it was where I got to, I'm really grateful that he was very open, because usually men aren't that open. So I was very grateful for that. So, and then he shifted. Like, he had already done his work though, but he healed from that event, because he always had this theme. He's like, oh, you're doing this to me, you're doing that to me. And I'm like, I don't do that. Like, where do you see that story? And we all do that, right? Yeah. Even I had a story before, and that story often is because of something that happened to us. But we're feeling that intensity and the pain because we're still reliving it. That memory is stored in our amygdala, and it's a red flag anytime we feel something similar happening. So anyway, one of the powerful tools, after the healing was done, was, what do we want to create? Because we have the power to create. I don't know if you're familiar with Joe Dispenza's work.
Oh, I love his work.
He talks, right? Joe Dispenza, Dawson Church, Bruce Lipton, they all talk about the electrons. So this is quantum physics now. So our electrons, when we look at the electrons appear as matter. But until then, it's just energy. Right? So which means we have power, and this is, we have that tool. We can close our eyes and we can visualize what we want to create. The moment we are visualizing, we are turning that into matter, and we don't even realize. So even now, if we have any kind of conflict, I close my eyes and visualize how I want this conflict to end, or how we are going to talk to each other. And so far, it happens that way. And one of the tools, like if anybody is in a relationship that's really helping for us, is what we are doing is, now when we are talking, we both lie down and talk. Because when we lie down, the body naturally, remember, your physiology affects your psychology affects your physiology. So when we are lying down, the body thinks it's in a resting position. Suddenly, the survival mode is switched off to the mode of parasympathetic, right? Yeah. Where it's like, okay, he's safe, because till then, when we are both standing, we're going into fight and flight, right? Where we're seeing each other as the enemy, and we don't even realize it, right? So just lying down to talk out our feelings has been another game changer. So I know I didn't start off this by thinking that I'll share all this, but I feel like maybe somebody needs to hear this, because these two things, closing your eyes, visualizing what you want, instead of visualizing, hey, I don't like what you do, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. Shift to, what do I want in my relationship? And visualize it. Literally use your senses, your touch, feel, imagine that happening in, when you close your eyes.
Yeah.
And then, the other tool that I really love is, okay, I need to talk, but let's learn how to talk.
That was powerful, Michelle. Like just the sharing of like acknowledging like where you needed to switch up your patterns, and then your husband, like at that time it wasn't the time, but then when it was his time, he came around and said, you know what? I have patterns too that I want to switch, and just coming together. And I love what you said about in a relationship, you come to co-create. And it's like that's what it's about, co-creation, right? What can we create?
Yes.
What's the intention?
Absolutely. And one more thing I wanted to add was, in the past, and again, remember I was talking about fear and love. When you make a decision, make it from a place of love. So it wasn't, so in the past, every time we separated, it was this fear. I was like, I used to find myself going, oh, I feel powerless. I'm scared. What am I going to do? Mm-hmm. Right? But what I noticed shifted was, I came this time when I made the decision, hey, you know what? I'm going to file for a divorce. Now, look, at the time, I just knew it was the right decision, even though, how do I explain it? It was one of those things where it wasn't where I'm angry at you, I need a divorce. It was one of those things where I just felt in my heart, I needed to do it. And that's, again, the heart too. There was this intelligence, and it didn't make sense to me, right? Because every time I close my eyes to, like when I met my husband 10 years ago, I just knew he was the guy. And so whenever we separate, it doesn't make sense to me. But looking back now and looking at our history, I can see how grateful I am, because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be doing the work I did today if I hadn't gone through any of that, right?
Yes.
I feel like, right. So how can I understand your pain if I haven't been there? How can I teach somebody they are enough if I haven't been there myself, So it was one of those things. What I realized is when I made that choice system, you were talking about boundaries, it was that boundary going, that's it. I'm not playing this cycle anymore, but from a place of love and compassion. But we did, don't get me wrong, we did have breakdowns after that. So guys, I'm not saying we're all angels here, right? Because, and that's the other thing, you want to become aware of, hey, I wasn't so nice then, and that's okay. And that's when you get to practice self-compassion, because you're not meant to be perfect. A lot of people are so hard on themselves, especially mothers too, right? When we have this expectation we need to be perfect with our children, and when we fall, guess what we do? We are beating ourselves a lot. And I used to be that mom, and I'm saying it, And the reality is, it's all compassion. We need to practice compassion for ourselves. Anyway, so a lot of elements again, a lot of layers again, but what I wanted to emphasize ultimately is, when you make any decision in life, come from that place of being fearless, come from that place of love, come from that place that you just know God, universe has your back, and come from that place of everything is happening for you, not against you, for you. And if that quiet little voice says something to you, right, and you're in a state of compassion and love and peace and joy, do it. Because follow your heart, because the heart always knows. It's so, I really wanted to emphasize that, because a lot of us are scared, right? Whenever we have to make a decision, we're like, how am I going to survive? Or I don't want to do this, right? So
but that's coming from survival, right? That's coming from survival, like from fear, just how you said, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to survive? What am I going to do? What like it's this fear energy versus like being in love and being in peace and in compassion, and like everything that feels expansive, and knowing that, you know what, this is all for my highest good. It's all happening for me, and I trust and I surrender to the experience, because honestly, I have no control. Like I have no control, and me trying to control everything outside so that I feel like I'm in control is only gonna deplete my energy, and it's not serving me.
Yes, you are in control of you. You're in control of what you put out. You're not in control of the other person, but you're in control of your thoughts, your emotions, your inner state. And when we realize that, we become powerful. Like we step into that power, because hey, you know what? That person doesn't dictate my inner happiness. That person or the actions doesn't dictate my worth. Because that was the other thing, right? I was allowing others to dictate my worth for me.
Yeah.
Thinking somehow my worth had to be earned. And the moment I was like, I'm just worthy, even if I do my hair or not, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Something that I keep coming back to is that really just hit me like last year, where I was like, you know what? The mere fact like that I am in existence right now, that I am here right now, that life actually expressed itself through me, like it actually happened through me, like makes me worthy. Like that's no question that creation happened through you. And I'm like, okay, that is powerful. Like I am so worthy. Not from an ego perspective, but really like essence, like, wow, I am so worthy. Like creation really expressed me. Like that's amazing. Yeah.
And it's even like, once you start to realize the spiritual aspect of it, I know I was talking about a lot of the science of it, right? But think about it. What if we just saw each of these circumstances in a way of, hey, how can I grow from it? Or this is an experience, right? So here we are, spiritual beings in the body, and we're here to experience. And we wouldn't know what good experience is if we didn't experience the bad. There was no way to know. So then there's that high that we feel, the joy, all of that sometimes would have been hard for us to like figure out if we didn't experience the bad. And also the growth. Think of all the growth we have made. Our growth didn't come from our happy moments at all. If we have to go back and change some of the hurtful moments, again, if you come from a place of full healing, complete healing, having understood, the essence of why you went through what you did, you would never change. You would never go back and change things, because you realize who you are today is because of those experiences. You know how they say diamond, think of a diamond, right? High pressure. Diamonds are made under high pressure. You need that pressure. Even like muscle, you go to a physical training, right? If you go to the gym and you're lifting weights, think about it. The first step is your muscles are tearing. They are tearing. But we just know that, we're experiencing pain and we feel great about that pain. We know in our minds that this is going to build my muscles, but we find that we have a different story when we are going through emotional pain in our lives. But what if we had that story and went, you know what, it's just a tear, it's going to transform, right? What can I learn from this situation? And of course, it doesn't mean that everything, it's like it's bad to experience an emotion. And again, I want to emphasize that every emotion, it's part of the experience. So don't try to suppress anything. But what is powerful is recognizing what you're experiencing. That's why when we do journal work and everything, and we started to write things down, we can self-reflect and go, wow, I have so much anger I'm holding on to. And you remember, Wendy, how you were saying when you were writing down, I forgive myself. And that's like all the steps you were talking about. It's like in the You Are Enough book too. And I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what I was guided to do. And this like whiteboard technique and stuff like that. But it was one of those things I realized it wasn't Aaron, my husband, I needed to forgive. It was myself I needed to forgive. That is what was weighing me down the most. It was easy to forgive other people. It was these expectations I had for myself that I couldn't because it was expectations. Think about it. I expected myself to be perfect. I was a perfectionist growing up because that's how I was brought up. I was brought up in a culture where my grades were compared. If I didn't get the first grade, it was like, why didn't you get the first grade, right? So it was like, there was this need to be perfect. And so I continued that, not even realizing that is not the norm, because that is all I knew. And that's the other thing, a lot of us. But as adults, I think when we experience a turmoil, when we experience a negative emotion, it's actually a good sign, because it's a sign telling us there is something wrong with the program that we have been programmed with in our subconscious. And it's time for us to visit that program and see if that program is serving you. Because if that program is not serving you, it's causing you a lot of pain, it's time to pull it out. So pain is not necessarily a bad thing. It's sign telling you, hey, you know what, something's not working for you. You're not connected to that love that you are. You're not connected to your true essence. That's all it is, you know? So it's also the story that we're giving situations to sometimes.
Yeah. So I hear like every year, upgrade yourself, just like your phone, just like you're constantly upgrading your software.
Yes.
And you're upgrading phones, like upgrade yourself as well. Like that's the opportunity where you get to grow. Yeah.
Yes. Constantly upgrading ourselves, right?
Yeah.
2.0 version. We're constantly growing every day we're growing. That's okay. I think that is why we're here. You know, to grow,
to evolve as well. That's the course that life takes, right? Evolution. And I think since we are part of it, since we're part of the creation, life itself, like we are no different, and we get to evolve as well, like internally, like mindset wise, emotionally, spiritually, everything. Like evolution is the name of the game.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
I agree completely. It is evolution. We're just evolving, and you know, it's in the journey. It's in the journey, right? It's not the destination. A lot of us get caught up in the destination of focusing on the destination, but there is no destination. In a way, if you think about it.
Yeah.
It's the journey. That's
yes, the evolution, like just continue to evolve. It's okay to have goals and all that good stuff, but acknowledging that you can access all the feelings that you think the goal will give you right now. Right? Like being in love, being in joy, being happy. Like you can have that right now.
Yeah. And that's your manifestation right there, because you're manifesting the goal. Now the goal has to find you because you're creating it. You're sending out that energy to it, right? And the other thing you were talking about, it's not the goal. Absolutely. And one of the problems that humanity has is this problem of attachment to something, to a person or to a goal. Right? You're attached to this goal. You want this end goal, but what about opening to the possibility that it could be something better than the goal?
Yeah.
You don't know, right? So how about, yes, we have our goals, but focus on the emotions, like you said, but also have that place of non-attachment. Goals and more, you know? Why stop at just your goals when anything is possible in this universe, you know?
Yeah, in the realm of possibility.
Surrender.
Yeah, yes, I love it. Now, Michelle, so like I want to get into just revisiting a little back in time. So like if you had the opportunity today to put a message in a little time capsule, and that little time capsule was going to go back to the version of you that was really getting hammered, that was really going through it, and that was really like in anguish and suffering, like what would that message contain? What would it say?
It's so funny, because that's basically what I've written in here. You are enough. You are valuable. You're here with a purpose. That's my message.
Beautiful. And let me ask you this: do you think that version of you would take it in? Like would take in the message?
What? You're here with a purpose?
Yeah.
Because the three things, like I said, the book was originally for me. It's because those three things were the things I questioned about myself, right? I questioned, am I enough? I questioned, am I valuable? What's my point here on earth, right? Am I even adding value? I questioned all of these things. So that's why, to me, the message is, you are enough. You are valuable. And you're here with a purpose. Just knowing those three things. And maybe I would write, you are loved as well, because I feel like a lot of us struggle with that too. And I'm pretty sure going back, I probably felt like, oh, I wasn't loved by my mom. But I don't know. That one I had to think about a little. But for sure, it is, you are enough. You're valuable. You have a purpose.
Yeah. So for someone, well, first and foremost, thank you for sharing that. That's so valuable. Like that you could actually send you could actually give those words to a past version of you that was really going through it, and like allowing her to receive it as well. Like, yes, I want to give it to you, and please and allow yourself to receive it. Yeah. I love that. And now, for someone who's looking to recreate themselves, who's really like trying to like do a whole flip on their life, what's a message that you would give them?
You know what? When if someone is trying to do the whole transformation,
Mm-hmm.
I would say pull out the weeds,
Mm.
plant a new seed, fertilize your garden, take care of that garden.
Wow.
That is what we need to do, right? So that would be my message to them. And even in that pulling out the weeds part, one of the things you just reminded me while you were asking me that question, what would you say to your younger self? Part of my work is actually going and visiting that younger self and giving that younger self, because we have the power to create, giving that younger self everything it needed. So all of us have an inner child, no matter how much we don't want to, face it.
And they come out.
Exactly, they come out. And there's a way we can heal them, we just need to heal them. We just need to assure them, right? So pull out your weeds. Very important, or else that inner child goes crazy with the triggers. Then plant new seeds, or you could do both at the same time, and water your garden, fertilize it.
Water, fertilize. So pull out weeds, plant seeds, water your garden.
And the seeds for your new garden, exactly.
Yeah. I absolutely love it.
I was going to share with you guys a 2-minute technique to connect to our hearts.
Okay.
So you know how, we all need to, not even one, we all need to connect to our heart. So it's called the quick coherence technique. It is by the HeartMath Institute. They came up with the technique. All it is we're going to place a hand on the heart. Just by doing that itself, right? It's like also giving ourselves a little hug. We're releasing oxytocin. Just even going, yeah, I exist. My heart's beating. I'm alive. I'm grateful, right? So we start with that. We start with placing a hand on the heart. And then I'm going to invite everyone. And if you're ready, Wendy, I can actually guide you all through it.
Yeah.
So let's go for it then. So place a hand on your heart. And just imagine your breath going in through the heart, into your stomach, and out through the heart. See if you can deepen your breath, make it a little slower. And maybe add a rhythm to the breathing. So if anyone is watching for the first time, I would invite you, or doing breathing techniques for the first time, I would invite you to breathe in for 5 and breathe out for 5. You can even practice that rhythm. So breathing in, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now see if you can bring to mind a beautiful memory. Maybe it's a place you've been to that was beautiful. Or maybe it's your children, your pet. A memory that makes you feel so grateful to have experienced that. And see if you can genuinely feel that feeling. Feel the feeling of gratitude in your heart. Feel the feelings of love, compassion, kindness, joy, calmness, peace. And whenever you're ready, you may open your heart, open your eyes actually. But literally that was 2 minutes.
Wow.
Big shift into the heart.
Yeah.
And you can feel that, right? It was just literally not that long.
Yeah. Wow.
But we can do deeper stuff too. But this is enough to get someone started. I tell people do this 3 times a day because it's releasing really good chemicals into your body, feel good chemicals into your body, and it's powerful.
I love it, and I could completely feel it, and I just feel a sense of calm and peace and just groundedness. I everything, just coming back to my center, coming back to home, coming back to my heart. And well, thank you for this, and thank you for sharing it with everybody. And Michelle, if someone wants to work with you, how can they find you? Where can they find you?
There are so many ways. First of all, the best is to actually join the community, because I do a lot of free live teachings on there as well. So the Facebook page for it is called You Are Enough Community. So that's the name, and I can share the link with you, Wendy, if you want to put the link.
Yeah, I'll put it.
It's a great place to be. Yeah. I'm thinking of doing a You Are Enough live very, very soon in 2 weeks. So that's going to be a really good one. We're going to go over the 7 steps of transformation there. The other place to find me again is www.rewiringminds.com. So they can find me on the website. The website is actually being updated right now, so it's just a page right now. But soon, I'm very, very excited. It's going to be, everything is going to be explained there. It's going to be beautiful. I'm looking forward to that. And they can always get my book. It's on Amazon, Chapters, Barnes & Noble. So it's there online. It's called You Are Enough. It looks like this. And so that would be one of the places where they can learn more about me there and learn the strategies and the techniques. Or they can directly call me. I do offer 30-minute complimentary sessions. So I can give you the link to that as well, Wendy. So they can just book a call. We can go over where they're stuck in life right now. And I can even give them some tools to get them started. And yeah.
Yeah.
I have a YouTube channel. I'm like, but I don't make confuse people too much. But yeah, one of the best ways might be to book that complimentary call for a 30-minute session, breakthrough session.
Yeah, so Michelle's gifting you guys a complimentary call. So if you like that, I'm going to go ahead and put the link. And again, thank you, Michelle, so much for being here, blessing us with your light, with your wisdom, and just your presence. I loved it, and you shared so much value with us. So thank you. So everybody, you guys know where to find her. I'm going to place all of the information in the details below. And reach out to Michelle. She's amazing. Thank you again for joining us in this episode. And remember, if you want to get notified, don't forget to click that notification bell button so that you are notified. And please be sure to share, like, and subscribe to the channel. All right, my beautiful people. Take care now. Bye.